Getting a
Yeah,
car.
it's time.
Time to get a car.
Yes,
Yes. Okay,
it
we're
is indeed.
live.
Oh,
This is
yes.
Christine Baumgartner and Barry Selby, and let's talk about dating.
Yes.
Oh, today I actually wrote down notes because this is it's a heavy, intense subject. I think one of the heaviest that we'll be talking about so far in our talks. I think, don't you
Ha-
think?
yes, and it's also more freedom when we get through it. So the thing is, people are going, I don't want to watch this too deep. It's like, no, no. We're going deep so you can get freer and get happier and be
Yeah.
whole. So it's that benefit.
Oh, it's a thing that you can make a huge difference. One of the biggest differences in your life if you can learn how to move past. So stop carrying shame and guilt, and we're going to teach you how.
Right. And the thing about it also is that just to be aware, a lot of the dating coaches out there, relationship coaches, don't even touch this area. So we're going deep because we both work with this.
Yes, all the time.
Yeah.
Because don't you find one of the things I ended up writing down was because I find this so often for my clients, and I know you do too.
Hmm.
How did your parents use shame and guilt when
Right.
you were growing up?
Absolutely. It was coming from a Jewish background. It was built in.
Yeah, that's true. I thought about that when I was writing.
Or Catholic, same thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
By the way, let me back up a second. So just a recap for those people that hit this, like if you missed last week's episode,
And there's more.
yeah, last week we talked about blame and resentment, and in a way,
Yes.
these are the opposite versions of the same thing. So basically, blame and shame are two sides of the same coin,
Yes.
and guilt and resentment are. So if you saw last week, we talked about how it's externalizing resentment and blame on other people. This is the shame and guilt we put on ourselves. So really, we're going on the same trajectory, but internal versus external. So the bottom line is, if you handle your life with the skills that you this week and last week, you'll be so far ahead of the crowd.
Yes. And people will wonder why things roll off your back, why you get over things quicker, why you don't take mundane things personally,
Hmm.
how you can move through your feelings. I mean, really, that's exactly what we're teaching last week and
Yeah.
this week. Those are the skills.
In fact, I would call it emotional mastery.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
a lot of people don't have that. Or actually, I always have to think about emotional mastery, emotional maturity. They're sort of the same terms. Because a lot of
Yeah.
people out there have no clue what that's like. They so react to things and
Mhm.
become so judgmental that it's like, I'm not sure I want to be around this person. That's the other thing, by the way. When you have these skills down, you become much more nice to be around.
Yes. For yourself as well as other people.
Absolutely.
Because last week we talked about judging other people. And as you said, this week we're talking about judging ourselves.
Yeah.
Yeah, very much. So while I was writing stuff down, I thought,
Hmm.
well, I need to look it up. So it was all the words that we use on ourselves for shame, humiliation, that we're wrong, and we were foolish, and we degrade ourselves, and we get caught up in the lies that we tell ourselves about ourselves and other people. And we feel like we failed, which then makes us feel like a failure.
Yeah.
I
It's
thought those were so poignant.
underlying for that, me, although all those things say the same thing, which basically is we have this thing where we go something along the lines of, I should have done better than that.
Yeah.
Is that and that's the thing we do. I mean, we have this, and it's something. I mean, I sometimes joke with my clients and say, it's like, are you finished beating yourself up? This self-flagellation thing we do, and I talked about this last week. I hinted at it. I'll explain again this week about the image we carry of ourselves. But the truth is, we do have this judgment that we're not acting up to some rule that we should be a certain way,
Yeah.
and somehow we violate that because we didn't do as good as we should have done because we are better than that or something like that.
Yeah.
So
What's
yeah.
the ideal, this magic, elusive, really, truly unattainable ideal? And the other
Hmm.
thing we do too is often we're comparing our tricky thing that we all do is we only compare ourselves to people that are doing, having more,
Oh.
better. Always. We never think, well, gosh, look at what I might have accomplished differently than these people. Look where I might be a
Right.
little off. We never seem to go in that direction, which is so
Right.
self-defeating. Because the more
And
you do that, the less self-confidence, self-esteem. It really is a spiral because you need some self-confidence, you need some self-esteem to go the other direction, and you're just chipping it away when you're beating yourself up like that.
exactly, it's so debilitating too. Because
Yeah.
the challenge is that we think somehow that we are equal to other people. That comparison thing. Well,
Yeah.
we are equal to each other by being uniquely different.
Yeah.
And we talked about men and women being equal but different. That's one of the things too. But even just other people in general. And so that comparison, it's like we weaponize comparison.
Yeah.
To not against other people, but against ourselves.
Yep.
And so we have this never-ending struggle to match up to an ideal that we can't equal because it's not even possible.
Yeah.
Because the thing is, we look at the people and say, well, they're doing so great, but we don't know their true story.
No.
They may have the nice house, the nice car, and the nice relationship on the outside, but they might be destroying themselves internally through something they're going through.
Yep.
And you may not want to wish for what they have because you know the price that goes with it is too high.
Yes.
So comparison doesn't work. So let's shed that one for now and talk about really relationship with ourselves, since that's what this is all really about.
Yes. And what I know about shame is it's an all over thing. I'm a bad person. All of me is bad. When you start feeling shame, it's not usually what guilt normally is one instance, it is everything. There is nothing social redeeming. I am all screwed up. That's what shame does for us. We just put on this cloak, and it's overwhelming, truly overwhelming.
Right. And sometimes guilt does lead to shame, because guilt's one of the things where you have a guilt about something we did or something we said or some way we were being. But as you said, with the shame, it's kind of like that just adds to the pile of shame we carry inside. And what guilt does, she keeps ladling more and more on top of it. So it's not fun to do.
And how you were talking about the two sides of the coin, what I have found too, that when we're deep in shame, we often get really mad at ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And we really beat ourselves up with not only the disapproving and the lesser than, but we get really mad. You know, you're such a screw up and you can't do anything right. And how could you even imagine thinking you could qualify for? I mean, it just permeates every area of our being and how we are being in the world.
Absolutely. It is. I mean, if we were able to see that everybody else's world, like if everyone was carrying like a jug of their own shame, and if you looked around at the world and saw everybody else's jug and realized just how much everybody else is carrying the same thing, just this incredible amount of self-blame, self-judgment, and shame, we'd have a lot more empathy, first of all. And we'd also be less judgmental of ourselves, going, I'm not doing so bad after all. Not to say we're comparing again, but the reality is we're not alone in this.
Yeah. Well, and I love how we're going to really try to get people to stop comparing. And it really is going to be hard to do that. So if you're going to compare, the agreement is you have to compare on both sides. At least do that. I mean, when you can't just stop comparing. So if you're going to keep comparing because it's a habit, then go, oh, well, what is good about me?
Right.
Not to put people down, but when you compare, wow, my life, as you said, is not so bad, not so screwed up.
Yeah,
there really are some okay things about it when I look at it compared to other people. Wow, I'm glad that that's not me. How sad for them. Glad it's not me. That is perfectly acceptable to feel that way.
Well, as long as you don't go down too far down the road judging other people for being bad.
No.
Just qualifying that.
Well, moderation in all things, right?
Yes, but as you're saying, really, the bottom line is you want to be comparing yourself favorably.
Yes.
Because we're so habitually trained to compare ourselves unfavorably, where we think we're less than other people, not as good as other people. I mean, I know working with my clients, and I did it myself, is that when I met somebody I was attracted to, I would compare myself to what I think that person would want, and that person what they would want to be so much better than I was, so I couldn't even go close to them.
Yeah.
So that wiring that we get reinforced all the time is part of that shame we carry. We don't think we're equal to. So if you're watching this video and you're starting to realize that, oh yeah, I do carry that sense of not being worthy of what I want to have, keep watching. We're going to help you through that.
Yes. Because what I find a lot because half of my clients are men, is they are frequently telling, well, she's out of my league. I don't qualify. And it might be so, and they're not really looking at it accurately though.
Right.
You know, what they're judging it on isn't always a good comparison. It isn't good. They don't have all the information. They don't really know what's going on for the other person. Mm-hmm. And I've experienced it personally. You know, I've had that happen where men have told me, you're out of my league. And I go, well, I'm really interested to hear why. I'm not going to try to talk you out of it. I'd really like to hear why. Because often they don't have the whole story.
Right. And let me do a little bonus piece right here, because this is one of the things I've learned a lesson on too, which is rejection. Because that's one of the things we face, is that we don't think we can go out to somebody because they're going to reject us. The lesson I keep learning about rejection, and I'm still learning this one, so I'm not expert at this one or past this point, but rejection is actually one of these most bizarre things we have. Because what rejection is about is that we want to go out with somebody we're not going out with, and they say no, so we're back to where we started. So if that's the case, if you look at it from purely from a clean place, without any emotional baggage, and go, okay, I'm alone right now. I want to go out with that woman. She said no. I'm still alone. Nothing happened. It wasn't like you didn't get rejected so much. You just didn't get what you added to it. So the challenge is, how do we face that situation where we can say, that would be wonderful to have, but if I don't get it, it's okay.
Yes.
And that's the thing that lesson I'm learning in material things. Like if I didn't get a job, or didn't get a result, or didn't get a certain thing, it's okay if I don't get it, because maybe something better is coming along.
Always.
But when it comes to relationships, that's the question. Can we do the same thing there that we do with material things?
Yes.
So that's the resentment piece. We can do that another time in a whole nother conversation, but I don't want to drop that seed in there, because we do have this comparison thing where we start going, well, they'll resent me and they'll reject me and they won't want me. It's like, so what?
Yeah.
Ultimately.
Because on that rejection piece, one of the things I had to really learn and continually have to get to teach, is they can't reject you if they don't know you. I mean, they might be saying no. I think I talked on one of our podcasts about this lovely man I dated a really long time ago, and he was so nice and I really liked him, but he looked like my dad, and there was no way I was ever kissing him. There was just no way. I'd look at his face and I'd go, you look like my father. It was too weird. It was so weird. And he kept saying, what is it? Why can't I get next to you? And I finally had to say, this is something you can't do anything about, and you look like my dad. I'm so sorry. This is not going to happen. And there was all these other really good reasons. I couldn't get past it. Oh, well. And I wasn't rejecting him as a person, because all the other things about him were really nice. It was this thing he had no control over.
Right.
I had no control over. I could not fix this. I tried. We went out for a few months and I tried to get over it. I couldn't. It was too weird, because, oh my God, they could have been twins. It was so weird. So that's the thing where I didn't reject him. And I kept saying, I'm so not rejecting you. There's all these great things about you, and somebody's going to be, and I was really meant that somebody's going to be really lucky to have him someday. It just wasn't going to be me.
Yeah.
But it's hard not to take it as rejection, for sure.
Well, taking it personally. And that also, on top of that, creates more shame. Get back to our topic. Because we somehow feel like, well, because they rejected us, therefore something wrong with us.
Yes.
Very few times do you look at, they rejected us, so that's their problem, not ours.
Yes.
Or their opportunity, their challenge, whatever it is. I don't want to say problem necessarily. But if they reject us, like you were saying, like you basically had to reject him because he reminded you of your father, that wasn't good or bad on him. That was just what it was. It wasn't. Same thing wasn't good or bad on you. It's just realizing that's something you didn't feel comfortable with. It's done.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there's no shame or guilt in there anywhere, or resentment or blame.
No, none. There was none. Because I kept thinking, if I like him enough, I'll just get past this. Because there just wasn't anything else I didn't like about him. But I finally, after a couple months, and I'm like, I even tried kissing him. I was like, I can't do it. I just can't. It's too weird. I couldn't think about kissing my father. This is too weird. So really looking at that, it is your responsibility if you're feeling this way, and what can you do about it? That's the crux of it. So do you want to talk about, do you think we should go right into how you recover from shame, or should we go into guilt? What do you think?
Tell away which one.
I know. I thought about it before I said anything, and I thought, I don't know. They feel like 50-50.
I think guilt's the one that we get to first, and I think shame comes underneath that. That's the way I feel. I'm not sure how you.
No.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
All right.
So guilt. The difference is it's usually a thing. Something we did, something we didn't do, something we didn't think we did good enough. Something we wish we hadn't said, something we wish we had said. It's a specific out there thing that feels like a nugget. It doesn't feel like that big cloak makes us a bad person. It's just this thing makes us feel badly because of whatever thing we think should have been different.
Right.
Yeah. Is that what you think too?
Yeah, because it is definitely more targeted. It's not so.
Yeah.
Where shame is not usually. It can be shame for something you did or didn't do, but generally speaking, it's a feeling level paintbrush that we painted ourselves with. Whereas with guilt, it's more focused on one thing.
Yeah.
So again, because I said at the beginning about how guilt and resentment are two sides of the same coin, as we spoke about last week. So I'm going to reiterate what we talked about how guilt functions in the body, why we have guilt, and use an example about where we say something we did something we wish we hadn't done. So we basically hurt someone's feelings, or we caused a car accident, or we sent the wrong email, whatever it was we did that was so bad we were guilty about.
Yeah.
So, and there's a little caveat in the middle, so I'll get to that in a second too. So here's the way the model works in terms of our psyche and our beingness. Again, so using last week's reference, here's someone meowing.
Yes, you said, "Oh, I'm awake now. It must be time to be on the video." Okay.
Yes.
Come on. Yes.
So, understanding that as human beings, we are innately good people.
Mm-hmm.
There are certain people act really badly, but we innately are good people as human beings. We're good people. So the thing is that we like to have things in to be congruent, working together smoothly. And so when we do something bad, something that's not right, we're violating that being good. And so the problems we have, there's two things going on. We're a good person, we did something bad. Again, we cut someone on the freeway, or we wrote a bad email, whatever it was. That can't go together because good people don't do bad things.
Yeah.
According to logic. So what we do is we have to put something in between to separate those two items. And that wall we put between is called guilt. Last week we talked about resentment being the thing where we have it's about other people with that, but this is the one that's more intimate, personal. So we have this wall called guilt, which basically allows us to maintain the belief that we're a good person whilst we've experienced doing something bad. So guilt is the response to something that was done that doesn't match who we are. Because, again, we are good people. Now, this is the thing. We are good people. However, the reality is good people aren't always perfect.
Mm-mm.
So we do things that are, to the best of our ability, good in the world. But then we get lazy or forgetful or reacted to something, we start doing something bad. And this is the way it works. So recognizing that when guilt shows up, it can be used as a signpost or an indicator,
Mm-hmm.
rather than a self-flagellation tool.
Yes.
To beat ourselves up with.
Yes.
Because guilt and resentment are again two sides of the same coin. And we talked about last week how resentment is like taking poison, expecting the other person to die. That's the metaphor of it, because resentment is very toxic. So is guilt. Guilt, in a sense, is taking poison, hoping we're going to die. Mm-hmm. Because it's the self-annihilation, because we don't believe that we're okay because we did something so bad out there in the world, which oftentimes the other people don't even know we did.
No, isn't
it's
that
all inside of here?
Mm-hmm.
So learning this piece, understanding it, not saying well, forget about it, I'm not going to worry about it anymore. It's like, no, the recognition is that we're carrying some sort of judgments against ourselves. And in shame and guilt and blame and resentment, a lot of it comes down to the layering upon or the besieging of ourselves with judgments that make us feel bad, ultimately, because all four of those things are going to generate bad feelings inside ourselves. Even if we think like, well, they did something bad, so I'm going to resent them. Yeah, but we're toxic. We're being toxic in here, not out there. So recognizing that guilt, resentment, and all these different things are all internal. So we're going to basically make ourselves feel bad.
Yep.
So it's not something you can just go switch. I'm going to feel good now. No. Some people may be able to do that, but I think generally speaking we can't. So the way through that, and I talked about last week, and we'll get to it later on, is the work in what I call forgiveness. As simple as that. The F word, but the good F word.
The nice F word, yes.
Exactly. So recognizing that when we have this judgment inside ourselves that we're a good person, but I did that wrong, that discord is the judgment we carry. Because like, if I was a good person, I wouldn't do that. Therefore, if I did that, I'm a bad person. And that's the crux, is that when we do something bad in the world, usually by mistake, we start judging ourselves as bad people, which, when it's repeated enough times, starts putting us into shame. That's why they fit together so well.
Yes.
So that's the Cliff Notes version right there.
Yeah, you layer on enough guilt, and you will start feeling shame. Guaranteed.
Absolutely.
And one of the things I thought of was when you said, good people do bad things, and we feel badly about it. We are concerned about it. That shows that we're a good person, because bad people do bad things really well and don't care about it at all.
That's the clue. Yes. There are people, unfortunately, out there who is like, I'm bad to the bone. I don't care. I'm going to kill him. I don't care.
Yes. Yes.
And there are people out there who are like that. I wouldn't recommend being in a relationship with them.
No.
Unless you happen to be one of those people too. But majority of people naturally think we're good people. So therefore, when we do bad things, it violates our self-image.
Yes. And one of the really good things about guilt is we'll take a look at how I didn't like that and how would I do that differently? You know, what are the steps to recover from something that made you feel guilty?
Right.
We'll get to talk about that when we come back from the break because it's time for the lovely commercials.
Ah, yes.
We'll be right back.
See you in a minute.
I think you like Barry's voice. Look at all those interesting shows we're a part of. Wow, that's
It's
really
quite an array. Yes, I see that.
It really is. Anything you could ever want advice about, there it is on Going Solo Media. Wow, very exciting.
Yes.
So today we're talking about shame and guilt and the differences between them and how to get past them in our lives. And the thing that I know about guilt is what gets me past it and what I teach is first you have to say, yep, I screwed up. I screwed up. I did something I shouldn't have. I did something I didn't mean to. I did something because I wasn't thinking right. I did something because I didn't know it would bother you, and to apologize.
Right.
I mean, that's really the first thing most people want to hear that have been the receiver part of something that we did that we didn't mean to or unintentionally did something that upset them.
Basically, that's for me being accountable.
Yeah.
Because again, good people don't like doing bad things, but bad people don't care. So a bad person does a bad thing, they won't apologize because they don't think there's anything wrong with it.
They will tell you it's your fault.
Know anybody like that?
Okay.
You're not going to go there.
Yeah, we want them gone from our lives. No, thank you. That's what we've learned, and we're teaching how to not have those people
Exactly.
in your life.
Indeed.
They have diagnosable letters after their name. Yes.
So,
on that note,
so having accountability and being willing to either make restoration or to at least apologize to that person or that party we've affronted or whatever it was we did with them is one step forward. Now, the real recognition is that if they accept that, that's great. If they don't accept it, that's great too. Because the thing is, when you are apologizing, it's not for them ultimately. It's for you to clear the consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
Because being a good person, when we have the good person doing a bad thing, we need to somehow get those two cleared out. One thing to talk about is forgiveness, which is a deeper piece we'll talk about in a bit. But also by by having an apology or making amends,
Yeah.
or being able to restore the relationship back to what it was, is the way to bring that back into balance again.
Yeah.
And so recognizing that when you do that, it's so you get to relieve the guilt inside. It really isn't so much about do they accept what you say the right way. No, it doesn't mean you can throw your apology out there and just like, yeah, I'm sorry, and walk away. It's like, no, you want to have impact too, but recognizing how they receive it again isn't up to you.
No.
This is the whole
No.
thing we talked about last week about, they do it what they will, but being honest, being I wouldn't say wholehearted is the right word, but being authentic in your apology is the way through that process. And it does, and oftentimes just by making an apology, relieve the guilt inside, because now you've got balance inside again, because you're a good person doing a good thing, which is apologizing.
And certainly around all that is what I tell people in general is listen to the thing they say they're upset about and apologize for that.
Yes.
Because sometimes what I found for men, an apology is they didn't mean it. So apologizing sometimes in the men I've talked to means, but I didn't mean to do that. So why would I say I'm sorry? That means, because I would never do that on purpose. And I said, because the I'm sorry does make that other person feel better. And so your job is to make you feel better by making your goal is to have them feel better. And so in order to make a woman feel better, we need you to say, I'm sorry I hurt your feelings. I'm sorry that I forgot to call you and ask if you needed something from the grocery store. Even though you had a really good reason for not doing it, even though you had a really good reason it happened, a sincere apology will get you off the hook.
Yeah, justification is not a solution.
No, ever.
No.
And then the thing that I think is a really good step for people that they don't always remember after they've said, I'm sorry, to say, oh, and this is what I know I'll do next time. This is how I won't have that happen next time. I'll put a reminder on my phone, or I'll let you know I'm in a bad mood already before I talk to you. I mean, just speak it out so that you say, oh, I'm taking responsibility and I've decided this is what I'm going to do differently, because not upsetting you in this way is really important to me.
Right.
Because I didn't mean to. I don't want to do it that way again. So explaining that you've thought about it and what you're going to do differently, I think, is a big piece.
And that's also part of the accountability piece, because being accountable is to take responsibility for what you did. So apologizing, yes, putting course corrective action, setting up a new paradigm for the future, all these things will definitely make your partner feel better because you're doing it. Now, if you keep doing the same thing, having the same thing happen, that's on you to maybe think that maybe what you're doing is course correction isn't working.
Yes.
So that's not, so what we're saying here is when it happens once or twice, you can use that method for that one thing. But if you keep doing the same thing again and again, saying, I'm sorry, I won't do it next time, I'll put it in my calendar this time, and you just ignore it again next time. That's not solving the problem. So it is about course corrective action that has effect and actually changes what you're doing, so that way it doesn't happen again.
Yes. And it's on you to figure out how you're going to do that. I mean, you certainly can ask the other person for help, come up with an agreement that you both say, okay, this is what will work for me next time. I mean, that kind of dialogue is very grown up and adult thing to happen.
Mature even, yes.
Very mature. I guess we don't probably grown up, but mature is a good thing.
Yeah.
I know that when we start having those big emotional reactions, we all get to be about 12.
If that, I think more like 7 or 6.
Yes. Often. I mean, that little hurt, misunderstood, frustrated because nobody was really listening kid shows up and blaz all over the place. So if you can grow that part of you up and come from a more mature place using these tools, you'll have a much more successful time with any relationship, personal, professional, your neighbor.
Absolutely. So speaking of that younger part, that ties into the piece about shame. Because for most people, shame is not something they usually get as an adult. It usually starts much younger, but it's been under the surface for many, many years. And the continual actions that resonate with it, make it more present as we get older. So people who are adults carry shame around a lot. I mean, I know I've had my own fair share of it, but it all tied back to stuff that happened when I was younger that I just didn't heal at the time. And most of us, frankly, at 6, 7, or 8 years old, don't heal shame because we don't know what to do with it. And our parents aren't teachers of it usually. So we tend to have it stuck inside, and it's usually, I'll say, unresolved, but also contained through most of our adult life. But certain situations, certain experiences, certain things that happen will trigger it to become off the surface. And what happens for those of us who experience it is like we basically almost collapse inside. Because we think we're doing so well and it's going so great, and then suddenly we go, oh no, and then just like we shut down. And the challenge is that the shame part is a blessing in disguise. Because again, tied to the way the guilt works, is that we are innately good people. And shame is stuff we carry because somehow we think we violated something on such a drastic level, we can never recover from it. But the thing about it is that is a lie. Because anything we've done has a path to healing, to accountability, you said earlier, and a place to resolution that we can, when we especially have guidance like from one of us to or through a therapist over your work, to resolve that shame so it becomes no longer the overwhelming feeling of loss that we carry.
Yes. Because the two sides of that coin is we go from criticism to compassion about us, about ourselves, give ourselves grace. Because I had a client the other day, I was like, wow, she said, I feel like I was branded by the shame that she had felt as a child that she didn't even realize until she'd gotten in a relationship and they did something just a tiny bit in that direction, but it dumped like the big dump truck of all the stuff that she had saved up as a kid. And she says, I feel like it's this permanent brand. I said, well, anything can be undone, anything. And part of it does start with the compassion of, wow, look what you went through. That was hard. Wow, yeah, your parents did the best they could. And this is how it made you feel. And this is how you've defended yourself and been able to compensate through your life. And it's like trying to, with one arm tied behind your back throughout your life. And as you said in the beginning, it is so freeing to finally go, oh, it's okay. I'm okay. I don't have all that awful stuff that I made up from what I heard as a kid.
And this is one of the more concerned, deeper and more painful stuff, because I know quite a few of my clients and friends I've worked through with this, and partners, where they were sexually abused when they were young, or even raped. So many women I know, and some of them I know by research in the world, who have had that experience, have carried shame because somehow they feel they're responsible for it happening.
Yes.
Which for me is one of the most painful things for me as a man to witness, because I'm like, it wasn't your fault. You may have been convinced by somebody it was, but it's not your fault. So the understanding that shame is not a permanent life sentence to carry around for something that may have actually happened to you beyond your control.
Yeah.
Especially as a young kid. Because again, a lot of stuff starts at childhood. And I mean, it's one of my most distressing experiences, distressing feelings to know of how many women I know who were that abused, that hurt when they were less than 10 years old. And still when they're 30, 40, 50 years old, still carrying that wound inside. Which is why I'm so dedicated to the work I do, is to help women heal that. Because if they're carrying that around, it limits their ability to be free, to be whole, to be happy, to be themselves. Because of some, again, programmed belief inside that they violated some sense of who they were, but do something so wrong that they can't fix it.
It's, makes my heart so happy. And I do know that that is a skill that you have to help women through that journey, as I have too.
Yeah.
Because it is, and men, I haven't actually worked with a man that was sexually abused. And I've talked to them, in a different situation. And oh my gosh, yes, the shame, the personal shame that they feel that is so misplaced. Yeah, it's tragic, just tragic.
Yeah, I've been in men's groups where some men have shared that, and definitely the recognizing the I don't want to. It's almost like how false that is. How illusion is to carry such a sense of that cloak, as you call it, that cloak of shame, as you said it was earlier, around something that really isn't meant to be because it wasn't their fault.
Yes.
To be the victim of that, and it's a challenge, I know, and that's one reason why this work doesn't end constantly for us, because we're always seeing people who are ready to move, because that's the other part, is that shame that's been carried around for many, many years will only be free when you're ready to let it be free.
Yeah, yeah. You have to be ready. You do.
Yes.
And you don't even have to know what to do. I mean, that's the thing. People say, well, I have to be ready to date to talk to you. I go, no, that's what I help you get is ready. I just want you to want to be ready.
Yes.
Then I can help you. So if what happens is the pain of people leaving us or us not being able to get close to somebody, whether it's sexual abuse or other things, when that pain finally gets in front of our face, we can't ignore it anymore. It's too hard. That we finally say, okay, the fear of talking about it, of working through it, of bearing my soul to somebody, a trusted source, is now going to take precedence. It's now going to move up to the higher thing. I'm going to get past that fear and decide I'm going to deal with that pain. So I don't want to feel this pain all the time ever, because it's so limiting.
Yeah.
We don't realize, it's interesting how, as you said, people are just going along, living their lives, and it feels pretty okay because they've learned how to cope. And then some sort of crappy thing comes up and you're like, oh my God, the rug got pulled out from everything that I thought I had in place. But that old childhood, often that maybe has occurred again in other ways, is that foundation you've been standing on, and the rug will get pulled out. And we need to put cement, firm foundation for you to be standing on to live the rest of your life. And other thing I'm not sure we've talked about much is you're never too old. You can do it anytime, right?
Absolutely.
Oh, I'm too old to get past that. Oh, it's been there too long. Oh, I don't even want to date anyway. What I find is you just have a happier relationship with yourself. Let's just start there.
That's the thing. I mean, it's funny because I was talking to somebody a couple of days ago about they asked me what I do as a relationship coach. And I had almost immediately want to say, it's like, yes, but my work's relationship with yourself.
Yeah, I know. Don't you feel like it's the subtitle of the book? Yeah.
Right. It's not about, I'm not a counselor between couples, although I've done it a couple of times. I help you become better to be a partner when you become a relationship partner. So yeah, same as you. It's like, it's about, let's do the work before you get into a relationship so that you can actually be more free, more joyful, more able. And yes, it is never too late to do this, because the truth is, unless you know you're going to be dying in like 3 minutes, it's worth being freer and happier than you've been before.
And you will be.
Exactly.
We've lived it for ourselves. And that's the thing, boy, you're like, oh yeah, been there, done that. Got the 3 t-shirts to prove it.
Indeed.
And we've lived it with our clients. I mean, we know this work works.
Yeah.
That's
the actual bonus, frankly, seeing my, so I know you do the same thing, seeing my clients to like inhabit themselves differently.
Yeah.
Like to fill themselves out like, oh, I'm okay.
Yeah.
So they feel self-supportive, self-reliant and worthy as well, because that's all automatic, because that's who you really are.
Yeah.
So yeah, I love this.
Yeah. I think that often we have these dark places that we're hiding behind or hiding from, or, got the 47 locks on the door with the 12 chairs put up again, and then a dresser that we can't go there. I can't talk about that. That's too big and scary. And it's like you have this beautiful house and you don't go into all the rooms.
Yeah. Because there's a memory there, and you can lock them up. Yeah.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes. It's what happens with agoraphobic people is, they'll have an occurrence that reminds them of something that brings up this emotion that doesn't have anything to do with the occurrence, but the emotion, they go, oh, well, I can't go do that. And I can't do that. And they finally just get so limited, they don't leave their house, and their life does not include the outside world anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's the most extreme, that most people do put all that guard up against it and have the door barred so they can keep living out in the world. But you're still not living as a whole human being. You're not living as your best self.
Right.
if you're hiding all this and pushing it away. And truly, with the right guidance, you come out better on the other side, because you think, oh my God, I really am going to die if I look at this, if I talk about this. I mean, I've felt that way, and I have people that tell me that when I'm working with them, and you just have to hold the space with them and go, you're really not. Promise. It's going to sound so est, but it's almost like a rebirth. It is. If you get through it, if you'll let us help you get through it, the other side is better than you ever could have imagined.
Right.
Sure.
That's the thing. This is quite a few of my clients I work with are actually dealing with weight issues because they put on the weight as a protection or as a way of avoiding, because they were so afraid of having it happen again.
Mm-hmm.
And I know, hang on, I know with my informal research for many of my friends and clients who have more weight than they'd like to have carried around, because I'm not saying being heavy is a problem, but some people put weight on as a protection or as a shield because they felt that what happened when they were younger, because they were not invisible enough, or they were too sexy, or too whatever it was, that they somehow, again, because they believe they somehow were responsible for it happening to them, they then take action subconsciously to change their physiology to hide it. So there are clients I've worked with who basically were carrying considerable amount of extra weight on from one situation that happened when they were 10 years old that they carry around for 30, 40 years. And that when they start really doing the work and they're seeing themselves as they truly are, to heal and resolve and release that shame that is not theirs to carry in the first place, because they now get that it wasn't their fault and they can move forward and they can forgiveness and everything else, the weight starts to disappear.
Mm-hmm.
Then if they're going to diet, they have to do it, because the thing is, even if they do go on a diet, the weight will come back because the unresolved shame, the guilt inside is tied to that weight. And until that's gone away, the weight keeps coming back.
Yeah. I found my clients, diets don't work.
Right.
It's the belief that you have inside of you that's keeping the weight on.
Absolutely.
And if you don't deal with the belief, I mean, even if you do end up losing weight, often it comes back, because that belief that you still need that protection, and everybody has different ways they protect themselves, and often it's weight. Often. When it's been a physical harm, often, because isn't that seem like the easiest way? And we have to eat anyway. So you just put on weight and then you feel like you're guarded. You still have this limiting belief. And you could be more successful in your job. You could be happier with your life. You could feel like you could be more adventuresome. You could take more chances if you didn't have this limiting belief that's manifesting itself by putting on weight.
Exactly.
And that's what you find, that even though now they're starting to lose weight magically. It feels magic to them, even though it's hard. I mean, I want you to take credit for this because you've done all this hard work. I don't care that you haven't changed all these other things in your life, even though they do have more energy to exercise and they do think, oh, I like this kind of food better. I want them to see what expansion it does in the other areas of their life, because it is amazing. They didn't even realize how they were holding themselves back.
And then they start to take mastery over that, and then they start to become more self-willed. And so it's like, it's the abundant blessings keep showing up. It's amazing. I love this.
It just keeps squaring, bigger, bigger, in a really good way.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then their friends are like, well, what diet did you use? I go, so what did you say? They said, getting rid of my emotional baggage was my diet I used. I said, I got a lot.
That's the way it works. Yep.
Yeah. Because emotional baggage leaves lots of room to tuck in all that hurt and sadness, which is where we put all those calories too.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I have found, people have said, oh my God, I have gotten down, truly, they keep a record of how little they're eating and their body's still not going to let go of it, because the belief is, if I let go of this, you are going to be harmed again.
Exactly. Yeah. That's the thing.
Diets don't work. They don't work.
Right. That's
sadly.
Yeah.
The diet by itself, and it is probably the biggest money-making industry out there, next to drugs. But even though that's partly drugs too.
Right. Well, it was a saying that the study did is about something like, this is going back several years ago, there's something on the region of about that 95% of people who intentionally lose significant amounts of weight will generally put it back on within 5 years.
Yes. 95%.
Yeah. That's why like Jenny Craig and Weight Watchers, they now have coaches with their programs because they realize that with people losing the weight, a lot of them keep putting the weight back on again because they hadn't done the work inside. So their coaches, however good they are helping them to navigate through that.
Yeah.
We do it without using the diet programs.
Yes. Well, I've actually coached a couple people that were going for that lap fan surgery, and they said you really should go talk to somebody because they don't have coaches that particular arena.
Right.
So we worked for a while to get them ready, and the 3 that I've done that with, I've only done 3, have kept the weight off, and the longest one is 5 years. So there's that statistic, and it's because we worked on the emotional baggage.
Right. Because the thing is, when you have that healing inside, there's nowhere for that weight to stick.
No, that's a good way to put it. It can't. There's no baggage to pack it in anymore. The baggage is all gone.
Exactly.
I rid of all those old suitcases. They've gone up to the Goodwill.
That's a good way of putting it.
Thank you.
That's the thing. So shame and guilt they're not life sentences.
Yeah.
And the reality is, when you start working with them and do the inner work with someone like one of us two, your ability to be free to enjoy life more and to be whole is automatic.
Automatic. After some work.
Yes. Well, yeah.
Deep, good work. Yeah. Because I think sometimes one of the dangers, I don't think we do it very often, but I think one of the dangers in our industry is people hear a couple of tips or tricks or techniques and they go, oh, I can just go do that. And they don't understand that the container that's in. These are just the pieces inside this whole container of, it really needs to be a program. It really needs to be, it has an end. We don't want to talk to you forever and ever, but it needs to be ongoing for a certain amount of time. I was thinking about that in the shower this morning, that I wanted to make sure that I pointed that out, that yes, try some of the things we've said, and no, that's not the whole picture.
Right. And the way that, I know the psychological studies have said that basically a habit takes anywhere from 21 to 35 days to change.
Yes.
Or I should say, I believe it's 21, 35 days to release one, and then another 21, 35 days to install a new one.
Yes.
Well, with my clients, it's 3 to 6 months working together because we know it's going to take time, because the reality is that it may stick first time, but maybe it's little practice runs and refinements to get it to where it does finally change everything. So that the commitment to the time, especially if you've had 30 years of this, 6 months is a small commitment to have transformational happen.
I think so too. And I find the same thing, that over the 6 months time, the 3 to 6 months, because that's what I end up working with too, is it's like an onion. You've peeled these layers and you're working with and then, there's a new layer that pops up.
Yeah.
And then so you deal with that layer, and then there's another, and you get to the inside, you do deal with the whole onion. It's not like it goes on for another 30 years. It just doesn't happen in 2 weeks.
Right.
Yeah. Doesn't happen in one talk. That's the part I really wanted to say.
Yes.
Boy, we could be charging a whole bunch of money if we could.
One session, $5 million. Yeah, right.
Then you could go buy that fancy car.
Indeed. Back to that.
Well, Cece's saying we need to stop talking again.
Oh, okay.
Even though this is such a wonderful, juicy subject that I hope people have at least said, oh my gosh, that's me, crap. And oh my gosh, there's hope. Yay.
Yeah, I hope I definitely hope what we talked about has really landed for people, that they get the message and also get to know there's hope yet and opportunities for freedom, because that's what we're teaching.
Freedom. I love that word. Yeah, freedom from the emotional baggage. Because everybody says, I want to date somebody without baggage. Well, everybody's got some. You just want it to cull down. A minor amount. I said, at least if it can fit up in the bin of an airplane, the overhead bin.
There you go. Carry on only.
Carry on baggage, yes. No big steamer trunk.
Right.
So if you would like to chat with me about anything we've talked about today, the way to get a hold of me and to have a wonderful complimentary conversation is to go to my website, which is www.theperfectcatch.com. Click on what's holding you back from love at the top, and it'll schedule a time for us to talk together. You can also write to me at Christine@theperfectcatch. You can reach out to me through Facebook and LinkedIn and Twitter and Pinterest and YouTube. I remember this time. I was
tracking them.
Well, usually Barry has to fill it in for me because I forget. And Barry, please tell people how they can get a hold of you.
Indeed. So like Christine, I also offer a complimentary consult, discovery session as a gift from me to you. So if you go to my website, which is barryselby.com, on the navigation bar at the top, there is a little link that says Let's Chat. And that's what we do. You fill out the form, sign up, schedule a time, and we chat and have a conversation to see if you're, one, if you're ready to do the work, just to be clear, and two, if what we talk about, if something you want to do together. So my website has all my offers program, my signature program, my book, and other things on it too. I have a best-selling book, by the way. You can email me at barry@barryselby.com if you really want to get to me quickly. And on social media, you can see me. I'm on all the different platforms. YouTube is my more visible videos, which is youtube.com/barryselby. Also on Facebook, my business page is barryselby.author, where you can follow my posts and get in touch with me there. And I have a few groups you can join. And then all the other platforms, Pinterest, Twitter, they're all Barry Selby. LinkedIn is Barry Selby. Instagram is the real Barry Selby, because somebody else took I'm going to say this. Let's just say I don't use the other one anymore because there's a problem with that. So the real Barry Selby. But otherwise, come find me. Let's talk and let's see if we can get you where you want to go.
Yeah. Get you on the right track of feeling whole and happy and your best productive self in the world.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So we'll be back next Monday at 1 o'clock Pacific, 4 o'clock Eastern. Oh, what did I say?
Monday.
Oh, my God.
That's your other show.
We'll be, yes. Oh, yeah. We'll be back Thursday at 1 o'clock Pacific and 4 o'clock Eastern.
We'll see you then for some more stuff. We'll have a great time.
Oh, it's always fun. It's always nice to see you, Barry.
You too, Christine.
Bye.
See you next week.